In this video, I'm going to show you how to make a head pin and a bead cap for a simple earring with a shot plate impression die. The first thing you're going to need is some wire that will fit through the holes of your bead and some shot plate elements that have already been pressed and prepared. Here I have 20 gauge sterling silver wire, and that will fit through the bead I've chosen to use for my earring. But you'll need to pay attention to the hole size of your beads to figure out what works best for you. And then I'm going to go ahead and file the ends of my wire flat because I'm going to solder my little shot elements to the ends of these wires, and in order to get a good solder seam, I need to have a good fit. So I'm just using a file here to file the ends flat. And then on one of these, I'm going to turn it into a bead cap, which means it's going to conform to the shape of the bead and be slightly domed. So I'm going to go ahead and use a dapping block and dapping punch to just give that small flower a curved shape. You're just going to tap it a few times. You don't want to hammer too hard because then you can start to lose the detail in your impression. And all I'm trying to do here is just give it a little bit of shape, a little curve. Okay, and then once that piece has been curved, you're ready to go ahead and go over to the soldering board. So here's my little cupped flower, and I'll take it over to my soldering board, and I also have those smaller flower shot plate elements that I'm going to leave flat. And I'm using a little bit of flux here. It's a little bit hard when these pieces are so teeny tiny. And then here I have my curved flower piece. Again, I'm going to put a little bit of flux on that. I've got some flux on the ends of my wire. And I have some small solder chips here that I'm going to use. And for when you're making a head pin, I'm going to solder the flower flat onto the bottom of the wire, but you could also solder it in the opposite direction, so it's not flat up against the bottom of the bead, but it's facing the viewer. You just decide how you want the bottom element of your head pin to look on the bead, how decorative you want it to be. Okay, so you can see I just melted some solder onto the end of my wire. I'm holding it to that little pressing, and then I'm heating both pieces up until the solder flows between them. And then here's a little bit of a closer view. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up a small chip of solder with my wire, flow the solder to the wire, and then I'm going to heat my little pressed element, my little shot piece, join the two pieces together, and then just heat until the solder flows from the wire to the flower. This one's a little harder to place because it's curved. If you're struggling with it, you can carve out a small depression in your fire brick so it'll sit a little more steady. But then you're just going to heat it until the solder flows from the wire to the flower, and then you're good. And now we have like a head pin that's also a bead cap. So this is how they look after they've been pickled and cleaned and patinaed. And you can see how this one conforms to the bottom of the bead, and this one's just going to lie flat against the bead. But I could have also soldered it so that it would be facing you. And then I'm just going to slide the bead on here, and you can see how that works really nicely together. That element kind of curves around the bead and finishes off that hole so that you don't have a visible hole. And then this is how the little flat flower looks. It just kind of caps off that end there and keeps the bead from sliding off. So you could wire wrap these elements to a chain or something else that you're making. I'm going to show you with the bead cup or the bead cap, the curved one. I'm going to show you how to just turn that into a super quick, simple earring. So I've got it on my 20 gauge sterling silver wire because that's standard for ear wires. I'm going to make a 90-degree bend right at the top of the bead with a round nose plier. And then I'm going to shape this longer portion around something curved. So here I have a file handle. I find that the end of a Sharpie is a really nice size. My favorite dowel size for making ear wires is 3/8 inch. 3/8 inch dowel, but you find whatever works best for you. And then once you've got it shaped, you can cut off any excess. I like to just give the very end a tiny little flare with a round nose plier again. I just like the shape of how that looks. And that's it. You can go ahead and hammer and planish some areas on this if you'd like to work hard in it. But that's it. That's how you can make a very simple earring with a bead cap and a shot die.